Hey friends, welcome back to the Guitar Max channel, and NuX has solved the biggest problem with looper pedals. This right here is the new NuX dual loop stereo pedal. And aside from having some really amazing input-output options on here, this pedal has a feature which really makes it completely different than other standard looper pedals which have come in the past. And it overcomes a huge limitation of previous looper pedals. So what is the limitation that I'm talking about? Well, if you look at a standard looper pedal, the way people typically use it, either out at home practicing or doing like a live looping performance, is obviously you record one loop and then you layer successive loops on top of that same loop. So maybe you do a drum pattern first, or you do a rhythm guitar part, and then you layer a second piece on top of that. So you put a lead guitar, you play lead over the rhythm that you already recorded. And the big limitation to that is that you're always tied in to that first initial loop that you recorded. And to give you a specific example of this, I have performed many times with Dovydas, and there are lots of these videos floating around YouTube. He does an amazing live looping performance where he has a machine to do drum parts and then a little keyboard where he can play a bass line, and then he'll put his guitar on top of that and he'll build up the loop in a traditional manner and then sing or play lead guitar on top of it. And obviously he has millions of subscribers. He's really good at it and really successful. But when you go and you watch these performances, the limitation is that you're always tied to that original loop. And so if you're trying to do like a performance of a full song, you run into that problem where you want to change, you want to go into a different part of the song, but because that part doesn't match the initial loop that you recorded, you can't really do that. And so the best you can do is maybe record the chorus changes or the chorus section of a song, and you loop that over and over again, and you do variations on top of that. But if you have, let's say, two different sections of a song, like a verse, which has its own chord progressions, and then a chorus section, which has a different progression, there's really no way to do that aside from just completely stopping the first loop that you recorded and then building up the second part of the song from scratch. And if you're doing this in the context of a live performance, it totally disrupts the performance and it just doesn't go over well. So this pedal here, dual loop stereo pedal. So yes, it's a stereo pedal. We'll get into that in a second. But the dual loop feature is really what makes this pedal different and so much better from traditional looper pedals in the past. You can record two separate loops, and you can do this seamlessly without screwing up the first loop. You can record a second loop, and then you have it where it's arranged in two different parts, and you can flip back and forth between these two different parts as you're performing, as you're using the pedal. And so now you can do that thing that you couldn't do before. You can record one section of a song, let's say the chorus or an intro section, and then you go to the second section, and now you have both of those different sections held in the pedal, and you can call them up back and forth at any time. You can switch back between them seamlessly, and so that you get this uninterrupted performance, but with different sections within it. The best part about it is it's all tied into the built-in internal drum patterns. So depending on which loop you're on, you can have it tied to a different drum pattern. And again, as you're playing through this and using it, it's all seamless. You don't have to stop your performance to adjust something on the pedal and then keep going. You can do it on the fly. So look, I'll give you guys a demonstration of this a little bit later in the video, but first let's just go through the other specs of the pedal. If we look at the back here, first of all, you've got an XLR input, and this doubles as a 1/4-inch cable input. You can plug either one into here. So you can hook up an XLR cable from like a microphone or even a keyboard, and if you are using a microphone and you're using a condenser mic, you've got 48-volt phantom power, which you can turn on here if you need to use a powered microphone. Next to that, we've got another instrument input. Obviously, if you have a guitar or something, that would get plugged into here, or again, a keyboard or some other piece of equipment that uses that 1/4-inch cable. Over here, next to it, we've got the output. You've got a left and a right, And if you're just doing a mono output, you use that left channel. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a few different ways you can use the output, which is really cool. Over here, we've got a whole bunch of the 3.5 millimeter plugs, like an aux cable or something. We've got an auxiliary in, a headphone out, and then MIDI in and MIDI out, and they all take the same kind of plug. So obviously the MIDI plugs, those are not standard MIDI plugs, so you'll have to use an adapter for that. And over here, you can even plug in an expression pedal. Not a lot of loopers have that feature. Okay guys, so now I'm going to hook this up and I'm going to run my guitar into it, and I'm going to go ahead and record some loops and show you guys how to use this and how to use it with the drum patterns. Let's go through that and then we'll talk more about the pedal and some other features which I have to tell you about. But of course guys, real quick, if you enjoy videos like this, checking out cool new affordable guitar gear and staying up on all the latest news in the guitar universe, and you've not already subscribed, please consider subscribing right now. Okay, let's plug this in and check out how we use it. Now, to start with, I'm going to demonstrate this with the drum patterns. So let's turn that on. Of course, you can select the drum patterns. They've got a ton of different patterns to choose from. And then the other thing that's really important here is right now we're on track 1, which is kind of like loop 1, or the loop section 1. And then the loop section 2, the second one is over here. And you switch back and forth between those with the center button. So we'll start on track 1, and I'm just going to record a basic progression here, and then we'll record something for track 2 or section 2. Okay, let's try it out here. Here we go. And then we can just play over the top here with that first loop. But then we've got the second loop, right? So we'll pause the first one and we'll switch to the second one. And we'll record a second loop in the second section, right? So here we go. And now we can play over those two different sections and just go back and forth between them. So we'll start with the first one and then we'll have it go to the second one. You can stay on one section as long as you want, and then switch to the other section whenever you feel like it as you're playing. Now the other really cool trick that this pedal can do is you can play backing tracks through it. Through the USB port, you can load files, preload files into the pedal and use those as loops. And so let's say you have a backing track or some exotic drum pattern that you came up with, right? You can preload that in the pedal, and then you already have that, and then you can record another loop live on top of it. And not that I'm suggesting this, but if you wanted to, you could preload everything and not actually play anything live. Now, of course, I would never condone such dishonesty, especially in a live performance. But if you wanted to just load everything ahead of time and then pretend you were playing live, you could do that, and I don't think anybody would catch on. The other thing that's important about this pedal is because it's a stereo pedal, you can have stereo inputs and in particular stereo outputs. There's an output control section in this pedal, so you can split those two different outputs and run them off to different sources. An example of that would be, let's say you want to have the drum pattern go out to a PA, and then if you're playing guitar through this, you can have the guitar go out of a different output and go into a guitar amplifier. There's a bunch of different settings built into the pedal that you can tweak, but because you have those two separate outputs, it opens up a lot of options for how you want to set the pedal up in a live setting. The pedal also has a few built-in effects which you can add to your signal, and it's not a huge range of effects, but it's got reverb, it's got an octave effect, a boost, and also a cabinet simulator. So as an example, because you have an XLR input in the back here, you could run a microphone into this, you could sing into it over the top of your loops, and then use the reverb and maybe the octave effect to really thicken up and polish the vocals. So I think what they've really done with this pedal is they've taken the features that people who have used loop pedals in the past really want. The fact that you can plug in different instruments, including a microphone, and it's stereo out and it's got some effects, and it has, of course, a huge amount of memory, so you can record hours and hours and hours of loops in this pedal. It's got all of that stuff, but to me, the big thing that makes this pedal so special is the fact that you now have two different loop sections that you can record on the fly and switch back and forth between. To me, that's the real revolutionary part of this pedal and what makes it so much more useful than the simpler loop pedals that have come in the past. When it comes to the price of this pedal, certainly compared to a basic looper, this is more expensive. This is under $300. I think it's about $275 right now. And of course, I'll have links down in the video description below where you can get this thing. And yeah, you can find a basic looper pedal for well under $100, but it's not going to do what this pedal does, especially with the built-in drum patterns and the fact that you can use it as an audio interface into your laptop or your computer or whatever, the stereo capability, and of course that real big feature of having the two separate loops that you can move back and forth between. No cheap loop pedal has any of those features. Okay guys, so look, honestly, I didn't think there could be much in the way of a revolution of loop pedals. I mean, fundamentally loop pedals are very basic, and I'm not sure why I didn't really think of this before. It's one of those things where you just think of a looper pedal and you're like, yeah, it's a cool thing, you can do some cool stuff with it, but they have their limitations and that's just how it is. Until you see an example of something that breaks out of those limitations. And it's like, oh, I guess it doesn't have to be that way. I guess that's just a lack of creativity on my part, but I'm glad the people over at NUX got this stuff figured out and made this pedal. So guys, let me know what you think of this down in the comments section below. And if you guys have seen the stuff that Dovydas does, of course I'll have a link to his channel. What do you guys think about those live looping performances like that? And do you do any performances like that yourself? Let me know all that stuff down in the comments section below. Okay guys, I'm going to have links for everything I was talking about in the video down in the video description. Of course, I'll have a link for this pedal as well as my social media, my online YouTube course, instructional videos, all that stuff down in the video description. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you very soon.